Hello, and thank you for watching. My name is Bradford Roberts, Principal Broker, Founder, and Owner of TR Realty in the Las Vegas area. After watching this video, please be sure to like it as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Download the pertinent handouts for this video by clicking the link in the comments below. Now let's get started. Okay, in this segment, I'd like to talk briefly about lease options. What they are, why they're risky, how to handle them. So when we think of a lease option, we need to think of this as being two things that work together. The first is a lease, an actual lease, like we are covering in this video series. The only difference is that that particular lease is going to be contingent upon a second document known as an option. So we have the lease contingent upon the option. We have the option contingent upon the lease. Now, LVR does not give us any standard paperwork for a lease option. The reason is lease options are very complicated. They have a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of legal ramifications. And in my opinion, the choices are either a broker doesn't allow lease options in his company, or he requires lease options to go through an attorney. Well, I choose B. So my agents can absolutely do lease options, but they are required to have an attorney draft the paperwork. And the attorney is usually paid by the prospective tenant, FYI. So a lease option, which is also called sometimes rent to own, this is completely different than seller financing, by the way. A rent to own or lease option situation, a tenant is moving in as a tenant, and there's some period of time for the lease. However, during the term of that lease, the tenant reserves the unilateral right, one-sided, it is his right, to go ahead and purchase that property, okay? So that is what fundamentally a lease option is. It is a lease, and during the term of the lease, there is that option that the tenant can buy the property. Now, I called it a unilateral right because once the option contract is effectuated, this is no longer up to the landlord. The landlord is selling his rights. The tenant is paying money, called option money, to have that unilateral, that one-sided right to buy the property. Now, I mentioned that these lease options can be quite complicated, and I want to mention some of the things that go into a lease option. Well, first is that unilateral right to buy later. Second is the term of the lease. In residential real estate, lease options typically run from 1 to 3 years, somewhere in there, but it's completely negotiable. The third component of a lease option is the term of the option itself. How much money is going to be paid? Is that money going to sit in escrow somewhere, or is it released, typically, is it released to the landlord right away? Next, how much is that option? It's typically between 2 and 5% of the purchase price of the property. Is it refundable? Typically not refundable. What is the purchase price? Are we going to come up with a number we agree on now? Well, that's going to be risky for somebody, right? Because if we set a number today for a sale price 3 years from now, we're just guessing, right? I mean, we can't even say it's an educated guess at this point. The market, especially in Nevada, can go up or down very, very quickly. So are we going to actually come up with a purchase price? Or if we don't want to come up with a purchase price right now, we can come up with a method to arrive at a purchase price later, such as we can agree on hiring an appraiser. Both sides would agree on who to hire and who's going to pay for it, right? So many moving pieces. And then whatever that appraiser says, we're going to go with that number. Or is each side going to hire a licensed appraiser and we're going to split the difference between the two appraisals, as an example. Here's another thing to think about. Rent credits. Not necessary to have rent credits, but a lot of lease options have rent credits, where some portion of the rent would be applied to the eventual purchase price if there is one. Again, just this one can be very complicated. Are we going to give a percentage of the rent? Are we going to only give a percentage of the rent if the rent is paid on time? If the rent is late, does the tenant lose all the credit they've built up? Do we allow the tenant to pay more rent in exchange for some sort of a matching? It can be very, very complicated. And commission, right? I'm a real estate broker. We have to talk about commission. What commission? How much commission will we earn later if this tenant decides to exercise their right to purchase this property? So as you can see, the amount of details that go into a lease option are almost overwhelming for most of us, right? Again, let me go through the list. A unilateral right to buy later, but when? Matching the lease term, typically somewhere from 1 to 3 years, but completely negotiable. Option terms, typically matching the length of the option agreement, typically runs concurrent with the lease agreement, meaning it's the same length of time. What is the option amount of money? Typically somewhere between 2 and 5% of the purchase price, but completely negotiable. Is it held in escrow? Is it released to the owner? Is it refundable on any conditions? Could it be refundable? Typically not. What is the purchase price going to be, or what is the method to arrive at a purchase price going to be? Rent credits, if any, all the terms and conditions around the rent credits, and then the real estate commission. Because, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, whenever it happens to be, if that tenant exercises the right to purchase that property, we want to be the agent on the scene. We want to facilitate the transaction. We want to earn a sale commission. So as a real estate agent handling a lease option, you can actually get paid twice. You can get paid now on the lease portion, and then you can get paid later if and when that tenant chooses to exercise the option to purchase that property. I would like to thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative for you. If you are licensed with another brokerage in Southern Nevada and would like to talk with me, please text me or visit our website. See you next time.